You have now arrived at Stadium and Gale.
Snap, the kick, it's been blocked again! Oh my! It's been blocked again! He's going to heave one deep down the field. It's going to be to the goal line. It's going to be gone! It's a touchdown! And the Gators have won the game! Corry Cleveland! Oh my! I can't believe what I just saw! Dropping back to throw, pops and fires the ball over the middle. It's Corry! It's Corry! Got a touchdown! Corry got a touchdown! Oh man! Corry's got a touchdown!
Hands it off to Harmon. He comes back. Say goodbye.
Ahmad Black, in his final game as a Gator, takes it all the way home and sends Urban out a winner.
You have now arrived at Stadium and Gale.
Boys and girls, ladies and gents, welcome to another episode of Stadium Gale. It's Corry.
It's Dan.
And Delatorre.
2 times in 1 week.
Empty personnel, no running back today.
We're going 3 wide. We'll jump right into it. We are lucky to be welcomed by Scott Stricklin again today, current athletic director at the University of Florida, for I believe the second time. I think it's actually the third time he's joined the program in the 7.5 years that we've been doing this. So without further ado, the current athletic director of the University of Florida, Scott Stricklin. Thanks for joining us today, Scott.
Hey, appreciate it. Good to be with you guys. So from here in my office, as I look out the window just past my screen here, I actually see the corner of Stadium and Gale. So I'm not sure you've ever interviewed somebody on Stadium and Gale while they're actually looking at Stadium and Gale.
Corey, you're on mute.
I think we need your office as our studio, Scott.
Hey, there we go.
Next time we're on scene. Scott, I'll kick it off here, and we really appreciate the opportunity for you to come on, and I really appreciate the time that we got to spend together back when you were in Tampa for the UF Iowa game. But we talked about it a little bit together, but I want to talk just because we're at the start of football season, so these conversations will probably end soon. Talk to us a little bit. Obviously, a very public head coaching search. I know Lane Kiffin was talked a lot about. Obviously, the Gators landed on Jon Sumrall, who's so far won over the fan base. But you changed the process, it seemed, a little bit this go around rather than the last time, bringing in Urban Meyer, bringing in Danny Wuerffel, a number of others. What made you guys look back and identify maybe looking at the process a little bit differently about selecting a head football coach?
That's a good question, Dan. As I think back about, for one thing, when you're going through that, like I'm having to, it may take me a little bit to recall some things because there was a lot happening. Sometimes I forget some of the people you even talked to during the process because there was a lot, moving quickly. I think one thing about this search that was a little different is there was a little more time just based on when the decision was made. And I know, in the past we've had a week or two before the end of the regular season, but we had like 6 weeks and we weren't going to hire a coach before the end of the regular season. So there was a little more time. I didn't feel like we were, rushing or pressing to get, something in a week or so or 10 days. So we had time to get, a lot of people involved. Duke Warner from our staff, who's been here 30 years. He's worked with like 5 or 6 different Hall of Fame coaches. He was part of our process when we hired Todd Golden. I really trust his instincts on what it takes to win at Florida. He was an important part of it. And it was funny, Danny called a couple days after we had made the decision public on Coach Napier. And Danny has been around the program through the Gator Made program. He's, he probably has every couple of weeks would be around the guys, knew our team pretty well. And he called and just offered if there's anything he could do to help. But he wasn't thinking be involved in the search. He was thinking like, let you know what I'm hearing, around the team and all that kind of stuff. And so I asked him to, I thought about it for a day and I said, hey, Danny, I think you'd be really helpful to actually be a part of these interviews. And I think he thought that we were going to go through a process and at the end have him meet whoever we decided we were going to hire and tell Danny to go out and tell everybody it's a great hire. And I said, no, you're going to be a part of this thing. And, there are a lot of constituency groups that you have to kind of manage during a process like that. We have some trustees that, ultimately I report to, and I had to keep them posted. We had some donors and some really high-level supporters that wanted to keep informed at a certain level, at a base level. And Danny was on a lot of those calls that we had, so he understood kind of all the different things at play. So it was really helpful. And then Urban was, it's hard when someone is working in media to be involved in something like that. And we have a lot of Gators who could have been very helpful. And I called a lot of, I had conversation with Tim Tebow and obviously Coach Spurrier, but, Tim's on air in a really high profile situation, much like Urban is. So Urban didn't really he didn't interview people. He didn't know exactly what was going on with every candidate, but he had he watches a lot of film and he's a coach. And that was something that I thought could add a lot of value. And so with Coach Meyer, I would just say, hey, have you watched any film on Tulane? What do you see there as a coach? Is it clean? Is the film look good? And then after, it was funny because I asked Urban early in the process to do that, and he's a busy man. He's doing a lot of stuff. So a couple weeks later, I'll call him back, and he still hadn't looked at the tape. Coach, I really need you to look at this tape. And so he finally looked at it. He's like, man, there's some really good stuff there. He was kind of fired up, and that's when I asked him if he'd call Jon. And at this point, it was part I wanted to get Urban's thought of what he thought, how he thought that interaction would go, but also wanted him to do a little recruiting for us because Jon had other options going on at the same time.
That's almost like I'm guessing that's why I wasn't included in the search, just still being in media. It's fine.
That's the only reason, Nick.
Yeah, I figured that.
I wouldn't want to put you in a situation where you had to be confidential and having to report. And
that's right.
I appreciate that. It's almost like Danny was like, "Hey, I'll help you move that couch since you're moving houses," and you were like, "Actually, we're going to move all the furniture. We need you to bubble wrap and everything."
Well, we had two searches really going on because we had a general manager search they were not connected. Like those two, Dave Caldwell and Jon Sumrall, did not know each other until the end of this process. And so it wasn't just one search. I wasn't just asking him to move one time. I was asking him to help me move twice.
Go ahead, Nick.
Real quick, just on that general manager note, there's so many different ways across the country, general managers and setups. And I know that you've really wanted to get an NFL style setup where, hey, we've got our coaches who are wearing cleats and they're on the field, and we've got our front office. And I don't need the coach answering questions about how much an X player makes. Like, hey, that's the front office. How important was it to you to kind of get that structure in place?
Yeah, it was really critical. And it was challenging to get on a number of fronts. Number one, college football coaches are used to, having control over every single part of their program. And when we would interview coaches, we would explain that, and I believe this, one of the reasons I think that we have struggled to find the right leader as a football coach here at Florida is we've asked them to do the impossible. We've asked them to, basically be the CEO, be head of personnel, be the CFO, negotiate all the contracts, be in charge of PR. I mean, we're asking them, to do every job imaginable. And the job we really want them to do is coach football. But we're not allowing them to be successful because of the way the structure is. And so I'd explain to these coaches that, hey, we're going to have somebody that's going to be responsible for your roster. You will have input. You will have to help recruit. You will have final say on who we go after. But you're not going to be responsible for any contracts or any NIL conversations. And in a best case scenario, you really trust the way that this person is building the roster, and you're not having to there's not going to be any conflict there because you guys are going to be aligned. So a lot of coaches, when I mentioned that, you could tell they were not very comfortable with that idea. And it's just I get it. It's like not how they've gotten to a level of success in their career, enough success to where the University of Florida has interest in talking to them, doing it a certain way. Why would they shift? And, that was hard. And a lot of schools, candidly, the GM position is a glorified recruiting coordinator. And, that was not our vision. Our vision was we want an executive who understands how to build a roster, what the appropriate skills are at each position, understands how to value that in this environment where you have rev share and NIL, and then works really well in a structure with a head coach. And so kind of the checks and balance we put in place is we tell these coaches, you're going to have final say on who we recruit, but the GM's going to have final say on what their value is. And so it is interesting because, we talked to these GM candidates, most of which came from the NFL. We talked to some people in college, but most of our candidates were from the NFL. And you ask the question, okay, what do you do when there's conflict with a coach about who you want to sign? And nearly every candidate said, people think that happens all the time. Like they struggled to think of a time in their career where that actually happened, where they and the coach were not aligned on who they wanted on the roster, which gave me a little bit of, because I was concerned about that going in. But I do think it's really important because I want our coaches to coach their sports and lead their team and not worry about the other stuff. We don't make them worry about taping ankles. We don't make them worry about putting social media videos together. Why would we make them worry about doing contracts and this other stuff? So the last time we went to Coach Sumrall's house in New Orleans, it was a Monday night before Thanksgiving, I believe. And we actually took Dave Caldwell with us. Dave had not been hired. And we told Dave, you're not under contract, but you're the guy we'd like to hire. But this is the coach I think we'd like to hire. And I need to make sure the two of you are, have some, get along there. So they sat in John's living room and talked ball and concepts and structure and hit it off really well. I think they both have really complementary personalities, which I think helped.
What an interesting scenario that could have what if that had just gone left? Like you're sitting in New Orleans and both guys text you after, but like, who's that joker?
Yep.
Absolutely not.
Definitely could have happened.
at each other.
What attracted you with Caldwell? Like what from an experience standpoint? I'm a Jags fan, so I'm familiar with him. I know he got NFL experience. I think college football general manager. I think all of this is fairly new, and everybody's trying to figure out how to build rosters. Rev share. The proper way to value position groups, etc. What attributes and what skills and experience attracted you to Caldwell as a general manager?
Of course, that's a great question because I've never interviewed this position or anybody from this background. So trying to figure out an evaluation process was something we kind of were learning on the fly. Obviously, want to know how they, you ask questions like, how do you go about, what's important? What do you prioritize when you're evaluating, when you're building a roster, those kind of things. And as, whenever you do any kind of interview process, the people who have more thoughtful answers tend to stand out. Dave had really thoughtful answers. I think Dave had learned a lot from the Jags experience and his subsequent experience with Howie at the Eagles, Howie Roseman, who's a Gator. Mm-hmm. And it was interesting to hear him talk about, what he would have done different. Sometimes you just have bad luck as an NFL GM. And interestingly enough, we probably talked to 4 or 5 assistant GMs in the NFL who had at one point been a GM. So these are people who had gotten fired from the highest position. And you think, well, why are you interviewing a bunch of people who have been fired? Well, let's say I believe that this position, the way we have it constructed, is going to be something that more and more schools do. And if college football didn't exist and we started tomorrow and we had to go hire a head coach and there's no college football to go hire a pool to use as a pool of candidates, we'd probably go to the NFL and find coaches in the NFL. And some of those, we wouldn't probably be able to hire a head coach in the NFL. We'd probably have to find either an up-and-comer or someone who had a shot and it didn't work out, and find out what they learned about it and give them an opportunity. That's where we are, I think, in this world of college football GMs right now. And so, you learn a lot from experiences, good or bad. I think Dave would tell you he learned a lot from the Jags experience and that process. The other thing that really stood out is it's going to be critical. It was going to be critical that the GM, I was talking about how Jon's personality and Dave's kind of complement each other, that the GM coming in had enough self-confidence and gravitas that they weren't worried about the head coach getting all the attention, because the head coach is going to get all the attention. And they were comfortable, I don't want to say being a supportive role, but they were comfortable with that arrangement. And Dave's got a great demeanor about him when it comes to that. And felt like he had the football acumen. I felt like he had the personality, and that blend kind of made him stand out.
On a personnel note, but unrelated, one of the things that when Billy Napier got hired, you guys you could never use the excuse that he was never given enough resources. I think the internet called it Napier's Army. He had a support staff of, I don't even know what the actual number is, but it was definitely seeming like almost a triple digit support staff. And then I think when Jon Sumrall came over, he said that there was a lot of people that he just didn't know what they did or provided value or what their exact role was. Not asking you to justify the spend on that staff, but how do you as an athletic director looking at a department of a coach that says maybe we need all of this support staff or all of these other positions versus like what maybe the actual true value or even perceived value of those positions are, and how do you work with not just a football head coach but any head coach on determining what's needed versus what's necessary versus what's like just nice to have or what's maybe even potential waste, if you will?
Yeah. Well, there's no question our staffs across all college football have kind of gotten out of control, the staff sizes. And, as an athletic director, you want to understand what everybody's doing. And I don't know that I could honestly have told you that a year ago, that I really understood every role and what was undertaken. But so, you want to make sure that we're not wasting dollars, and you want to make sure you have at the same time everything you need, everything your teams need for them to be as successful as possible. So, you don't want to, no, we're not going to hire another strength coach and then you don't have the appropriate amount of oversight in the weight room and there's an issue. But at the same time, you sit there and go, okay, is this really going to help us beat Georgia, having another strength coach? Show me how this is going to help make the Gators better. So you spend a lot of time asking those questions. I think Jon and Dave both have done a good job of kind of trying to get their arms around that a little bit. I've been at this almost 40 years now working in college athletics. And I remember a days when, we had 2 trainers for the whole athletic department. And, now we have, 5 just in the sport of football. So that's just one example. I'm not picking on trainers, but you can, there's staff creep that has happened at every level of college athletics. And probably more than anything speaks to is such a competitive environment. You don't want to not do everything you can to get your athletes the best experience possible so we can go be as successful as possible. But how you do that and balance that is a full-time job, literally.
Yeah.
What's your opinion? I know NIL is a big thing, like what some high school players are getting paid out of high school, or what some current players may be getting on the roster could just be I think a conflict sometimes. Like what's your opinion on that part of it? Like recruiting a guy and paying, like the general manager putting the value on them and roster retention.
Yeah, Corey, that's a great question. I don't think we're far enough along into this to really know, but I think we're probably not far from having enough data to actually look at, how much value is in paying a high school recruit versus a guy currently on your roster who's actually produced. There's a lot of value in, it would seem, right, to growing from within, and as an athlete has more success and has more value to the program, they get more rev share or whatever. I think Todd Golden and what he's done in basketball here is a great example. In this day and age, it's really kind of mind-boggling the amount of experience that he has on that team, that he's going to have 3 and 4 year guys, which is almost unheard of in one program. And so, but he has taken that approach, and he's kind of taken that approach by not signing the top 10, 20 ranked high school guys, right? He's kind of gone and gotten really good players, but maybe that don't have quite the expectation coming in of rev share. And so as they're able to blossom, he's been able to, accommodate them and make sure that they're valued. It's a little harder, I think, in football, right? But it does seem like it would be cheaper to retain players than go out and spend money in the portal. And so if that's true, and again, I think it's anecdotal. I don't think we have enough data to really know 100% that's true. But if that's true, then it would make sense. It's really smart to pay a certain level for high school kids, but I do think you have to be careful that you pay for actual production. One of the candidates we talked to during the coaching search said that made a ton of sense is you want the money that you're investing in the roster actually being on the field. You don't want the money you're investing spending a ton of time, 2 years to develop, right? You want it on the field. And that's why we have, when we invested in the GM position, is we need somebody really focused on that. And obviously Jon Sumrall is going to be focused on it as well. But we have a lot of resources here at Florida. Obviously that we're maxing out the rev share, and Florida Victorious and what they're doing and what we're doing through some of our other marketing sponsorship in legit NIL opportunities have allowed us to be really competitive. But you still want to be as efficient as possible. The more efficient you can be in making the decisions on, are you spending that money, the money you're spending on your rosters is showing up on the court and on the field. The more you can do that, the better you're going to be.
I have a two-part question here, and this is kind of switching subjects over to Ben Hill Griffin Stadium. So it was announced a $1.45 billion, at least probably, renovation. We're keeping the swamp, same capacity overall. Talk to us a little bit about how you guys landed on that number. The renderings are beautiful, by the way, but tell us how you ultimately landed on that number, because I know there's some discussion about potentially shrinking the size of the swamp, which I know the internet was up in arms about. So talk to us a little bit about how you landed there, and then I have a follow-up question after that.
And too, Scott, just how long this process has been.
Yeah.
Well, I have a note over here on the side of my desk that I think I wrote this like 5 years ago, and it's like how much a renovation would cost, how much a tear down and rebuild in place would cost, and how much a brand new stadium would cost. And that tear down and rebuild was $1 billion. This is 4 or 5 years ago. The renovation was half that. We're going to kind of do some combination of those two, and it's going to cost what those two costs combined.
Yeah.
So that's just the nature of cost escalation, especially in the economic environment we're in. The swamp, I think, is one of the most challenging venues to update and renovate, because we visited with a lady named Janet Marie Smith who did Camden Yards, and she renovated Fenway and Dodger Stadium. She's a legend in sports architecture. And early on, she came to a game. She came to, I think, the Alabama game, in 22. Was that 21? 21 here. And I remember her saying, Scott, your first thought needs to be, don't do no harm. You can, don't mess this place up because it's really special. So don't mess it up. There's a lot that needs to be done, but you got to make sure you don't take it to the extreme. And it's hard, when you take that approach, it's hard to, we have a lot of infrastructure issues. We have, obviously you've heard me talk about the accessibility demands that we have to be cognizant of, the opportunity to provide a better overall experience for all fans, more premium experiences included. It's hard to come up with the answer for all that. Probably the light bulb moment was going up to Green Bay, I think in 22, to see a Packers game, and what they had done at Lambeau. Lambeau's the oldest stadium in the NFL, and we kind of just took their playbook. They had a traditional bowl. They wanted to add. They fixed a lot of the issues around the concourse and restrooms and all that kind of stuff, and then they added new structures on top for the premium seating without disturbing the bowl. We just kind of took that blueprint, and not the literal blueprint, but that concept, and that's kind of how we ended up where we did. That the long and short of it is we have a kind of a physics challenge to get up to code in the bowl. We're going to lose actual seats in the bowl. Just there's no way around it. Just as simple as putting a handrail down the aisle, you're going to have to widen the aisle, which eliminates seats on the aisle on every section. So there's probably about 8,000 seats you're going to lose in the bowl just from putting accessibility type measures, ADA type things in the swamp. So that structure that we anticipate building on top of the east and the south is the way to kind of relocate people who are being displaced in the bowl, hopefully with products that they really like.
Sure.
But that's also the most expensive form of construction because you're going up. The higher up you go to build something, the more expensive it costs. And it just so happens that east and south side of Ben Hill is in a hole, basically. The way Stadium Drive goes down, and you're building it from the lowest point, whereas the north end and the west are at a concourse elevation already. So it's even more structure that has to go up. That's one of the reasons the cost has gotten the way it is. And we looked at, we again studied a lot of different elements of it. Really excited about the direction. Think it's a great plan. More than anything, I think it's going to keep Ben Hill being a really loud, impressive place. What Janet Marie said when she came to that game 5 years ago. I don't think everybody's going to think it's even a better version of what it's always been, and it's always been pretty awesome. So I'm excited about that and the ability to have a long-term solution. Every school that has a 100-year-old stadium, which is most schools in the power conferences and for sure in the SEC, they're all struggling with what do you do with these aging infrastructure on the most important asset your athletic program and maybe your university has, and because it produces no money, right? There's $500 million in deferred maintenance and ADA code compliance that we'll never see a dollar on. So it doesn't really make sense to spend that, and you just sit around. In the meantime, you watch the stadium, kind of decay, and that's you. You go into all these venues, you see that A&M's the only place that has really taken the bull by the horn, so to speak, when they did their deal 10 years ago. What we'll be doing here, they actually took it to the ground and rebuilt it. We won't be quite doing that, but what we're going to be doing is the most comprehensive thing that's been done at a college football stadium since what A&M did, and they've got the best stadium in the SEC, I think, right now. So I think ours will be we'll be right there with it, among the best in the country when this is over with.
Quick follow-up, because you just mentioned A&M, and that's where my question was going. I know that you guys are going to be doing renovation for 4 off seasons. Is there, I guess, what's the worst case game day disruption that a fan should potentially prepare in the back of their mind?
Yeah, I really think it's 3 off season, although the first one's going to be pretty minor, but you're right. There would be some work going on. Dan, really, that's really impossible to know right now because the contractor is not far enough along to really be able to talk about that sequencing. but the goal and the plan and the directive has been, we got to be able to get back in here. There'll probably be fences. The fans will have to walk around. There'll probably be, there. I think you guys don't need to change the name of your show, but Stadium Drive may be torn up for a little bit during this process. So there'll be some elements of that we'll just have some conditions going on that won't be normal until we're on the other side of this. But don't think it's going to impact the overall experience of coming to the game.
Construction and Gale coming to you live.
Yeah, there we go.
Nick.
I got a quick question. What do you prioritize, or what systems and infrastructure you got in place for the non-revenue sports to continue to grow and thrive?
Corey, we've one of the things I'm really excited about going on here at the UAA is kind of the executive team that we've put in place here in the last 12 to 18 months. A lot of it's just natural attrition. People moving on. Linda Teeler went to NCAA and Chip Howard retired, and so we were able to kind of restructure how we are organized. And one of the most important people we brought on is a guy named Michael Seeley, who is our chief commercial officer. And basically what that means is anything at the UAA that deals with generating revenue and resources. So when you think revenue, think resources to make your teams as successful as possible. Anything that touches those resources, that revenue, Michael's responsible for. Most athletic departments are not structured that way. Like the ticket office may report up to the business office. Sponsorships may report to the communications guy. Boosters may report up to some external guy, and that's the way we were. And those are really all the same functions, just dealing with different audiences. So Michael comes in, he's got 20-something years experience working for Stan Kroenke's organization. Stan Kroenke has the Kroenke Sports Enterprises. It's the largest sports entity in the world. He owns the LA Rams, all the Denver Pro teams, the Nugget, the Avalanche, the MLS team. Owns Arsenal over in England. And so Michael was a part of his team, sold across all his properties. And he got here last October. And I'm sharing all this because we've already seen significant category growth in various segments attached to some of our business lines, and Michael's just getting started. He's still building out his team, but that's going to pay huge dividends for how, in this day and age where football and men's basketball used to pay for everything else, they still will, but we have to build a bigger ATM machine in a lot of areas, and Michael and the work he's doing is a critical part of that. But whether it's our pouring rights, or field logos, jersey patches, naming rights for other things, we're going to be real aggressive in those spaces. We're not just going to do deals for the sake of doing deals. We're going to we have the Florida Gators is the #1 sports brand in the third largest state in the country. Probably one of the top 3 or 4 most recognizable college sports brands in the country and therefore the world. It's just an amazing platform that very few schools have the opportunity to leverage. And I believe that we're a marquee asset in the space for sponsorships, and we have not really acted that way in the past. We've kind of just done deals to do deals to kind of get some money in. We've not been very strategic, and we're starting to see what happens when you bring in somebody like Michael and let him be really strategic and drive value. And it's not just sponsorships. The Morgan Wallen concert is another example. That's those real dollars that came in to help support the UAA and our teams. We'll continue to look at other opportunities like that as well. So it's events, it's sponsorships, it's there's a lot of businesses that want to be connected to the Gators, and that's a privilege, and we have to make sure that we maximize those opportunities for UF.
And probably certainly a boon to the city of Gainesville, and they get 180,000 people in there on a random weekend for Morgan Wallen.
Yeah, it was a huge weekend for sure.
I've got a question. Again, kind of switching subjects here. Federal legislation on gesturing wildly about everything has kind of stalled twice now in Congress. At what point do you guys in the SEC or you guys in the Big Ten or whatever it may be decide to move on maybe without Congress or start to make steps to figuring out solutions to the problems that you guys might face?
Seems like we should have been talking about that before now, Dan.
Yeah.
There's a lot that comes with what you just said. And I think at some point we're going to all have to decide whether we get a federal bill or not. Maybe we will. And maybe that'll be a solution or part of a solution. I don't think that any federal bill is going to be a perfect solution. It may be an improvement over what we currently have. This is an unregulated, almost 100% unregulated space that college athletics is currently competing in. And we either have to just be okay with that, or it might look different who we're competing against. So I said this at spring meetings when people talk about SEC only rules, and everyone has a different opinion on that. My opinion is when you talk about the SEC doing something on their own with rules that we follow, I don't think it's going to make much sense at that point to compete against people that aren't following the same rules. So in that point, I think you're just talking about an SEC only universe that the Gators live in. I don't know that that's where we end up. I do think there's very few conferences that have enough market strength to go off and do something like that and still get, a lot of engagement with fans and people coming to games and watching on TV. I would say that, college football, college athletics in general, but college football drives obviously a lot of this. College football is like a regional sport with national appeal. And we keep trying to make it a national sport, and it's kind of illegal to do so, to be quite honest, in a way that, our federal antitrust laws don't really allow you to do it. Now there's, you could get the conversation then turns to, well, if you made them employees and they had a union, you could collectively bargain, and then it would be legal, and that's all accurate. But there's that right there is like probably several years in the banking just to get to that point. And
sure,
that might happen someday, but I don't know that we can sit here and pencil it out and say, here's the progression to get there. It might just have to come naturally. But from a Gator standpoint, I don't know if we're going to get rules. I don't know if we're going to get regulation, if we're going to get a federal bill. It's chaos right now, and Gators need to win the chaos. We need to be as good as anybody else at the current environment. That's kind of the message for our coaches and our athletes is, this is the world we're in. Let's go be great at it.
I think it's interesting because the Olympic sports, the smaller sports, I look at baseball specifically, and I think because of how much baseball has been shown in the NIL, the college baseball product has gotten so much better in this era. I tell people all the time, I'm like, I'd rather spend 3 of my minor league years on charter flights in the SEC than on a bus going from Birmingham to somewhere in East Tennessee. But it's interesting if you do that, what happens to the Olympic sports? Because football and basketball are the drivers, but then are you as a conference saying, all right, well, we have to take over all of the postseason for swimming and track and baseball and softball, which is something that the NCAA does. So I think it's so much of our mind is football and basketball for a reason, but we've got 19 other sports here at the University of Florida that aren't football and basketball that are very successful and have Olympians and national champions that sometimes I think we overlook. Yeah,
well, I promise you we don't overlook them here at the UAA because you're exactly right, Nick. And the experience that any college athlete gets these days, especially at a place like Florida, is pretty special, right? You think about all the access. I was talking to a parent of one of our athletes the other day, and they were saying, if they had to, just for the academic support that the Hawkins Center offers our Gator athletes, like this parent was saying, if I had to go do that on my own, pay for that support for my kid on their own, it'd be $5,000 or $6,000 a year, and that's for every athlete that gets that, or the dining hall, or the way they travel. the medical support, all the different elements. And whether you're a track athlete, a basketball player, a volleyball player, a football player, it's the same, right? We don't have different levels of support that we give Gator athletes. They all get the same amount. So, yeah, I mean, it's there's a lot of downstream implications, but everyone, here we have all the head coaches of other sports will be the first to tell you when football's going well at Florida, it makes their job a lot easier. And so it's just a fact of the matter. Someone may wish that they had more attention or more resources. All of our sports, they may not have the number one resources of any school in the country, but they are competitive with everybody in the country at the highest level.
I think I just meant more in like the decision. Like I go to like the Big Ten when they expanded, and like now a young lady who grew up playing soccer at Washington, all of a sudden it's like, hey mom, I'll be in New Jersey playing Rutgers for a conference game.
Right.
Do you guys think you can come see us? And I think it's just like the budgets for basketball and football are different than those sports. And I just think that, we're making decisions and probably justly so for those sports and how it kind of just affects all the other sports.
Well, there's, football kind of drives and college basketball. They drive a lot of it and across any of athletic program. One of the great things about the SEC as we have expanded in the last, a couple times here in the last decade and a half is we've continued to at least stay contiguous with one another.
Yeah.
All the states, connect and touch each other. And we, I use that phrase, it's a regional sport. We are a regional league. We just happen to have national appeal and the highest ratings of of anybody coast to coast.
I would have no problem if you added Hawaii. Wouldn't mind an every other year conference game with Hawaii.
Yeah, Texas is a pretty far way to go. I don't know if we want to go past Texas.
Shoot my shot.
Yeah.
Do you foresee a path in college football? Like, there's a lot of prominent boosters across. And I know we have our own with Conjuring and some others, and you have even Mark Cuban at Indiana. Do you see a path in the future where there's possibly some donor fatigue that eventually leads to like private equity, like ownership from or some type of profit sharing from a booster standpoint?
Well, we're definitely see elements of donor fatigue, especially where NIL is concerned, Corry. I think that's universal. Everybody across the board, and our guys have, we have like as I mentioned earlier, unbelievable support from a lot of donors in that area. But it's one of the reasons why it's really important that we're very efficient with how we use those dollars to try to maximize the success, and not necessarily just try to money whip every issue, every problem. The private equity piece is really challenging, and you see some schools that have started to kind of get active in that space. Utah being I think one of the first movers to have done that. The challenge is that using private equity to basically make payroll is a really, really bad decision, right? Because that's really private equity is a really expensive loan. It's a really expensive form of capital, and we have a lot of other ways to tap into dollars that don't require we hope to borrow $1 billion for the renovation of the swamp. We think we'll be able to get really competitive rates on the bond market to pay for that, where we won't have to go to private equity. So you're also seeing some people be creative. There was reports that LSU is doing something. I'm somewhat familiar with that concept. I think before we just go straight private equity, you're starting to see more and more schools that are creating LLCs to flow their a lot of their revenue streams through. I wonder if we might just kind of privatize college athletics in general before we go straight to private equity. In other words, get it out of the bureaucracy that a lot of athletic departments face on their campus. UAA is actually really well positioned because we're a separate entity already. It was, that happened 96 years ago. John Tigert made that decision, which was really forward thinking on his part, to create the UAA. We're a nonprofit, but we are our own entity, and we kind of can operate a little differently than some other athletic programs that are, quote, part of the university. But I think that flexibility is going to become more and more important. So I'm kind of rambling here, but I think I would not be surprised if you might start seeing more athletic departments convert into LLCs in an effort to get a little bit more nimble with how they operate, and that could lead to some opportunities to tap into some other revenue streams.
Yeah, private equities are not 501c3s. Those aren't friendly loans.
Don't do it, Scott.
Get it back to me whenever you can. No problem.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Scott, I've got a quick question. Again, switching topics again, and then I have one going back to football before we wrap up here. You're on, I think, your fourth different president, fifth different president. Stuart Bell was just announced as the new president of UF. Have you guys had the chance to connect? Obviously, coming from Alabama, understands, and Texas A&M, but before that understands SEC football and SEC sports. But have you guys communicated a direction or been able to get very far in the last month or so?
We have, and obviously very excited about Dr. Bell joining UF and excited for his leadership. The fact that he has been in our league for a long time and held leadership positions among the president groups, I think is also a great benefit. He first thing he said when I met him was he told me how many national championship rings he had from Alabama. He wanted to know when we were getting our next one. So I love that. I love a president who's locked into the success part of what we do in the competition. He's been great. We've as this federal legislation has been going through the Senate, we've had to make some phone calls with some of our delegation or with the league and coordinating with him on that. He understands things at a high level when it comes to college athletics, and so I'm fired up for him, and think he's going to be really good for the university in a lot of ways.
He was at scrimmage Saturday. I don't know that I've seen many sitting presidents come and spend 11 a.m. Be out there in the heat in a suit watching a football practice. So
we need to get him on to talk about practice.
He's been out there. He can do it.
Yeah.
All right. Perfect. We'll reach out to him. My final question, and then Corry, I know that you probably have a couple to wrap up here. I know we've got some games on the horizon, Colorado, Notre Dame, that were scheduled well before not only the SEC went to 9 games, but before playoff expansion. There's still continued talk, and I think I know your answer on playoff expansion. But is there an anticipation that those games will still happen, or those things still up in the air as we continue to battle what's happening in college football right now?
We're kind of navigating through that right now, Dan, and I wish that all those games could stay on. I think the reality of playing 9 SEC games plus the annual FSU game and having 10 power conference opponents, unless everyone else is going to go to 11 power conference opponents, I don't think the Gators want to be unique in that area. We've done that here in recent years and didn't do us much good. So I would not be surprised if there's some adjustments to those. There might be 1 or 2 still get played, but take Notre Dame for an example. That obviously would be a great game to have here. Maybe with an expanded playoff, we get to see them on each other's campuses through that, as opposed to just scheduling a game and making it that much harder for the Gators to get to a playoff. Yeah.
Corry, any final questions before we wrap up?
No, Scott's been pretty thorough here, man. I don't have anything. Very informative conversation. I appreciate you coming, man. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, man, for sure.
Thanks again, Scott. We really appreciate it. We certainly wish you best of luck as the athletic calendar has just started, I guess, last week with soccer, as you guys get into the throes of it. We really appreciate your time on this Monday, and we'll hopefully get to talk to you again soon.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot. Have a great year. Go Gators.
Go Gators. Thank you so much, Scott. All right, guys. Great conversation with Scott Stricklin there. Any key takeaways?
No, I like. Go ahead, Dick. You got it.
Yeah, just from the stadium renovation, I kind of talking to him years ago. Like I think he like 2-3 years in started thinking about stadium renovation, started planning it, and then watching them build the baseball stadium, and then COVID happens like while they're building it, and prices go crazy. But just getting his perspective on it, like the nitty gritty details. It's a building that's older than Lambeau, if I'm not mistaken, and becoming ADA compliant. I think he just said it, like you're $500 million in the hole just to become ADA compliant. Before that's just putting like handrails in and like creating a little bit more space. And I liked what he said, that the sports architect said to him, do no harm. Like once you get in, especially I think that's what fans' biggest thing is. Like this being in the swamp is so special. Like, sure, some stuff might be super inconvenient and I have to wait long, but like the environment that you get on game day, and how do you keep that, harness that, and not change it while making a 100-year-old stadium, kind of up to date and current. But it's literally been probably an 8-year process to even get to this point, and they haven't even broken dirt.
I was about to say, but I was just like, no, I'm not gonna do that. I was about to say, I think the fans would rather that $1 billion equity bond stuff that you talking be, or like player acquisition, but that ain't. I don't think that's totally his call. But I thought he was very informative. I gave some good insight just from the hiring of the general manager, the process of how players get paid, who's in charge of the value on the player. I think he gave a lot of good perspective on that. So. A good conversation overall.
Yeah, I think he was candid too, kind of about Dave. It's like you're hiring an assistant. Like there's only 32 GM jobs in the NFL in the entire world. Right. Someone's not being like, oh yeah, you know what? I do want to quit my job as the Dallas Cowboys general manager. Maybe that's a bad example.
Yeah. I don't know if I want him.
It might be a bad example. But like, who's quitting that job to come to one of 100 something, it's just
let me put the
different level.
Right back, fellas. One second.
Yeah.
Sweating.
Yeah. So no, I thought he gave great answers. Really enjoyed the conversation. I thought that I think you could tell there's obviously frustration that he has with governance and everything going on in the political realm, and that's unfortunately just as much, if not more important than what he's dealing with from a coaches and infrastructure and everything else. There's a lot on his plate. And I know it probably hasn't always been pretty. And I know that there's frustration and rightfully so. There's a lot of reason to be frustrated at a lot of different things, but I think there's the sheer amount of things that are on his plate right now and how quickly everything's changed in the last 5 years has been probably the last 30 years of change combined and pushed into one. And then every time you think you're getting somewhere, there's a lawsuit or there's a change or there's something else, some sort of wrinkle. And so I can only imagine just the sheer amount of work and directions that he's being pulled into. And so, being able to sit down with him for 50 minutes was a great experience. And I thought he gave a lot of perspective.
Yeah. And I think, it's funny. I think the NCAA, particularly, like, I don't know how sustainable what we're doing in college athletics is, and it keeps changing. It changed a little bit and it changed a little bit, and I don't know how sustainable it is. Corey's question about donor fatigue, Scott was candid about that, but like you're looking for answers in the government in an election year, and you're like, I felt the bill in the Senate was super rushed and has no input from the players at all, and it's just like sweeping antitrust exemptions for the NCAA. So I've come out against it, and fans like battle me on that. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. Like I work for a company that's constantly having to raise the money to pay for the players. And I get it. We're talking to donors, and there is donor fatigue on it, especially when you're not getting wins. Obviously we had a basketball national championship 2 years ago, but you're not getting consistent football wins, which kind of drives everything. But like you have to have, in my opinion, players have to have a seat at the table. And then you're doing it in an election year, and even if it passes the House, or passes the Senate, then it has to go to the House. And part of the bill was written as like, hey, expansion is capped here, which, hey, that's good. But what about the congressman whose district is Baylor and Waco is in their district, or Lubbock, Texas is in their district? How are you passing that through the House where that guy's not going to vote for it? You're leaving Texas Tech out. I went to Texas Tech. My constituents are. If I pass this, I'm not getting reelected. It just be I don't know that they'll have the votes in the Senate, and I think the votes as the bill is constructed is even less likely to get through the House of Representatives. So
I thought you made a very salient point about how it's a regional league with national reach, but being a national league as a collective body is just really challenging with your different antitrust laws, your different representation in your different political views, values, and everything else. And how important is this in Montana versus how important is it in a district that represents Florida State or, Miami or Clemson that are potentially looking to leave their conferences, and how do you battle all of that? And then, like you said, going into an election year, there's a chance that, one or both of the houses could potentially flip. And then how do you deal with that? And what we've seen over the last 20 years is we can't seem to come to the middle on anything. So it seemed to me like the tea leaves are that the SEC and the Big Ten are going to probably have to do their own thing, and very curious to see what that looks like.
Yeah, we there's like the saying that like the gears of like what is it? The gears of the justice system work slowly. Like I think the gears of the government and bureaucracy in the government move even slower than the legal system. So they were trying to rush. They were trying to rush it to make it work. But then the House was out, and then when the House comes back, now more than half of them are focused on being reelected, not focused on hey, let me get off the campaign trail to read through this legislation and let's debate it and write new legislation that we think we can pass.
Perfect. I love it. Well, I thought that was a great interview. Nick, is your gag order done? Can we talk a little bit about practice yesterday?
Yeah, I think we can. I can. I think I didn't listen to what Sumrall said today, but I think the reason the writers agreed to it was because you can, being in their spot in the past, you hear what happens from somebody, but you don't see it. So you don't know, hey, so-and-so had a touchdown. Watching it, I'm oh, that was a goal line touchdown. And all you're hearing is touchdown. You don't know if it was a 40-yard beautiful play or you broke a tackle and made a run, or if you fell forward 8 inches. You just hear touchdown. You write it, and fans love it. So being able to see it for yourself helps you ask better questions. So I think that's why they agreed to it. And then once the writers agreed to be able to see it and not report on it, then I was asked to.
100%.
We'll see what happens this Saturday.
Going with what Jon Sumrall said, they ran 127 total plays, 50 with the first group, 43 with the second, 34 with the third group. Jaden Bond, Dallas Wilson were on a rep count, maybe a few other players as well. Florida still mixing up on the offensive line. Egan Boyer does look to have solidified one of those tackle spots alongside Emeka Ujori. So that seems to be a potential answer there. The Florida quarterbacks threw one interception, 3 or 4 throws that could have been picked. And then he said he likes what both quarterbacks have done and that he's not ready to name a starter. Neither is light years ahead of the other. So we talked a little bit about that on the show yesterday. Cormani McClain was the one with the interception. Kicker Patrick Durkin was out with a minor injury, and Leon Padron was kicker. He's the transfer as well. There's 2 blown coverages that led to a touchdown, and then I guess on some goal line drills, the offense didn't score. And Jon Sumrall said, and I knew what would happen if they scored both times. He said, I would have loved to walk away with 2 touchdowns there. And I know what would have happened is if they scored 2 touchdowns, he would have been defensively, we would have loved to get some stops there, right? So you always have to be, aware of how these go. And then he did say on the defensive line, we have a group that can play right now with some depth. They need to improve on short yardage runs. In that after one of those drives, he was absolutely freaking pissed And so yeah, that's kind of it. They are going into they're going to mirror what the day is going to look like for the FAU game, and then next week's going to be mock game week.
Yeah, so this is the last week of camp. The way that Sumrall runs it and views it is they'll scrimmage Saturday night, and then this is the last like camp week. So like after scrimmage Saturday, you treat that as like, hey, that was a game, and then we're gonna have our game week Sunday. This is what Sunday will look like after FAU, after Campbell, after Auburn, and then you go into what Monday practice will look like and all of that. Jaden Baugh was on a rep count. He's also not like totally white glove treatment, but like I don't know that the coaching staff's going to learn anything new about Jaden Baugh by getting him tackled by Joseph Mbachu on a Tuesday, in August. So a lot of just getting reps. I think you've got such a deep room there. Duke Clark's been out. And Evan Pryor has stepped up. London Montgomery has stepped up. And even Byron Lewis had a good scrimmage Saturday. I think he's probably the fifth guy in that room, but with one of the guys out, everyone's getting more reps. And then knock on all wood, like Dallas has been healthy. VB was held out. He didn't practice I think Friday, and then didn't play Saturday. Was back full go today. I told him I didn't like his shoes last week because he was in a boot. Saw him today, said the shoes are much better. It's just getting the guys healthy, and I think that's the hardest part of camp is like how tough do you go to build toughness with your team versus we don't need to be super tough on August 11th. We need to be really tough on September 5th, and kind of managing that.
Love it. All right.
But, Eric Singleton, I think, had the best.
I would say like one of my like
though.
concerns is, and I say that not. What happened?
But one more scrimmage. Eric Singleton, I think, had the play of the scrimmage. I don't know that it's possible to overthrow him. I think Philo almost overthrew him on like a little skinny post. And Singleton, I put some pictures out. Singleton had this like catch where he laid out. He's like rare speed, Corry, like track speed.
Oh yeah, for sure. He's one of those guys, man. We got to have to go vertical for sure. I think he brings a lot to the table. It's going to be hard to not have very high safeties with guys like him. Not just him. I think we got 3 or 4 guys that could just take the absolute roof off of the defense. My concern is just like over history, I've never seen a close quarterback battle where it's tough to decide, but that led to a great quarterback play in the fall. Like just from my account, just going over the history of Florida. Usually when there's a battle that ends, like we normally see both quarterbacks. It's just never been a really productive year, but I'm going to be in the building Saturday, so I'm going to check it out. I'm coming up there with Flowers Pops. We're going to hang out. I'm going to see what's up. I want to see the team in person, get a good eye on that offensive line. Hearing great things about the D-line, but we did last year too, and that just means that with hindsight, the D-line was solid, but it wasn't as great as we thought, right? We didn't get the sack record like Nick thought like we would get.
Just a couple short.
But George got one in a preseason game. George got one in a preseason game.
Yeah.
I'm keeping the counter going. I
don't blame George Gumbs. I blame who's
coaching.
All
preseason sacks count back towards last year.
I see what you did there.
So you're only
I seen him in preseason. I was like, there's the George Gums Nick was talking about.
Thank you.
There it is. But I want to see what those guys. I heard great things about LJ McCray. Just so many guys on that D line. I heard really great things about the short run stoppage thing. Takes me back to us having a true 0-tech, 1-tech defensive tackle, that burrow body that we missing. Those are the type of bodies you want for short yardage. So that just brings me back to that tape we had in spring that we never really replaced him. But overall, I feel good about the overall defense. I don't have any preseason qualms, right? Not 100% confident in safety, but I think we got enough guys experienced back there where it won't be a liability. I think I don't know if Bryce Thornton is going to be a starter from what I've been hearing. I think these coaches that came over, if you look at the body type of what they brought over from Kentucky, they have a body type. They have a size that they want. So I don't know if Thornton's one of your starting safeties come forward. We'll see how it plays out. I've heard Thornton getting some look at nickel, which is also interesting. Playing some of the star. He's a guy that I think at the safety position, he's better on the back end with ball hawking, with ball skills. I think the other safeties bring more of a physical presence coming down here to smack things, But that's the only position I really got my eye on the defense is safety. But I think we solid there regardless of who's back there. I just don't know if it plays out how we think. I would like to see Lagunza, who I think has the highest ceiling in that room. I would like to see him turn that corner maybe early in the season. I don't foresee him being a starter, but hopefully with his reps in the FAU games, et cetera, the easier games in the season, he starts to turn the corner and start to click for him a little bit because I think he's one of the strongest guys on the team, has the highest upside at the safety position. So I'm cool on offense. Offense, regardless of the quarterback, I think the season is going to depend on O-line and the run game.
Yeah.
And you're bouncing everything off of that. So
yeah.
It should be a good team, man. We should get, at the minimum, we'll do our predictions a little bit later. I think this is an 8-win team.
Yeah, Bryce, I ended up missing that show. Ben Elsner could have explained it better than I will. But like Bryce has been, from everything I see, is one. It's like Bryce and DJ, they consider that nickelback a safety. So I think if you have a bigger personnel set from offense, that you would take Kanye Clark off the field out of nickel, Bryce slides down into nickel, and then you're bringing on a Cam Dooley or Laganza as that second safety. But yeah, Bryce has been back there. DJ, like when you say like a safety that smacks something, like I think of DJ Coleman. That's kind of what he's been. I think they're worried, I think, at corner, just because like if you get 2 injuries, then like you're young. Like Jabari got experience late last year, but then it's like Onus has played none. CJ Brano got here. He's a true freshman and didn't play at all in the spring because of injury. So, and then Didi's been hurt most of the past 2 years. So like you've got talent there, but it gets green quick. Correct.
Yeah, I think you got 4 guys. If you got 4 solid guys, if DD's healthy.
Yes.
And that's DeJon Johnson for the casuals that may not know all the nicknames, right? You probably just start tuning in for fall camp. So if DeJon's healthy, you got 4 really good guys that I think we could depend on. If you got 3 and DeJon's not healthy, like you said, it gets sketchy quick.
Yeah.
It's funky.
It gets sketchy quick. Guys I like Onus. I think Onus has a high ceiling, but the inexperience is, just from years past, that could be a thing. Like if I'm a quarterback or OC, I see a freshman coming on the field, a guy that hasn't played a lot, I might start picking on him. So that just become a thing. But the talent is there. It's just all about health.
Yeah.
It's good to hear that Cormani is starting to live up to his potential a little bit, right? 5-star coming out of high school. I thought he needed to get more discipline in his eye control, his technique, just staying fundamentally sound, not gambling too much. I mean, he may still be gambling at the same rate because he's getting interceptions in camp. So the gamble rate may just be hitting a little bit better. But if he's turning that corner, and then we've seen what the young boys with Hanks and Flowers they brought to the table last year. I think you'll have a good, healthy rotation. Because in my opinion, these days, like I think DBs got to rotate like receivers almost, right? Like you want to keep those guys fresh. If the receivers are continually cycling on the other side of the ball, like you may want to be doing the same thing on the defense to get good, fresh legs on the field, especially early in the season.
Yeah, I love Ben Hanks. Like he had a great spring and just carried it in. In my mind, he's CB1. Cormani is so talented. I think with Cormani, he's so athletic and has always been so athletic. He just like lets his technique break down because he can get away with it. Hey, I can catch up. I'm quick enough. I'm fast enough to catch up. And I think that's just the thing. He's gotten much better at that. But yeah, I'm with you. I think with Flowers and then those 3, you've got 4 solid, but an injury to 1 or 2 of those guys. And then you've got that guy who hasn't shown up on film. Like, hey, who's number 3 out there? He didn't show up at all. Let's go see what he is. And then you just start throwing at him. And then at cornerback or at safety,
Corey say barbecue chicken alert.
Barbecue chicken. I hope I don't have to bring that out this year.
I don't want to hear it. I don't want to
I don't want to hear that. Hopefully we don't have to bring that out this year, man.
And then I think on the offensive line, the offensive line continues to be my biggest concern for the team. I think interior, they've figured it out. You'll have Najee Harris, Harrison Moore, and then probably TJ Shanahan as your 3 starters inside.
Mm-hmm.
And then tackles where I think John's concerned, where I think I would be concerned. You're at the point now where, I mean, we're less than 20 days, under 20 days to the first game. I think you have spent a lot of time mixing and matching, getting guys to see where they can play, trying to find offensive linemen 7, 8, 9. I think you're at the point of camp now where you need those 5 who are going to be your 5 to start playing together. Every time the 1s go out, those same 5 guys are out. When the 2s go out, you've got the same 5 guys with the 2s to start building that cohesion and to start building, that trust of I know who's to my right. And if something happens, if they're stunting or if I'm getting beat, I know that the guy to my right or the guy to my left will be able to feel that, sense that, and help. Or you're at the point of the season where you need to narrow down and get those guys playing together.
Yeah, I like the Amir talk. I didn't mean to cut you off there. I like the Amir talk at tight end. I thought he was a good keep in the transfer portal, especially like Hezekiah as well. Just hearing some activity from the tight end position, because I do think with the O-line play, I said all that to say that I think with the O-line play being what it is, you're going to need tight ends on the field to be able to chip, help block edges, etc. If you're having security issues and not being confident at offensive tackle. So it's good to hear that some of the guys are making plays in the tight end position. So if we go 12 personnel, we don't feel like we did last year.
Yeah, and that's Amir's not the one you're going to be asking to do that. But I've been really impressed with Lakota Dupree in that aspect, like an older guy who I think enjoys blocking and has even helped out like Emeka and some of those guys in terms of blocking. Amir is a totally different player than what the rest of the room is. Yeah. And I remember saying this over and over with like Billy, it's just like, bro, if you were a good pass catching tight end, why would you look at that? What have you seen from that offense that makes you go, hey, I want to go there?
I don't know what you see from Billy offense all together. Say, hey, I want to go there.
Yeah. But I think Amir is the guy that you can feature this year to be able to show a tight end tape and be like, hey, listen, we just didn't have the guys other than him to do this, but this is what our offense can do. And because like the tight end room is what it is this year, and it's going to take a great portal class or recruiting classes to change it to make that position something that is really like an offensive weapon, more so than your safety valve, your check down, and somebody who can help be the 6th blocker. Because I mean, like we said it last year, how many times we say it during the Napier era, like the tight end room is just your 6th offensive line.
Yeah, I think I would like to see Amir at least chip block or pretend to block, because you don't want to telegraph your plays, right? Okay, only time he's on the field, they don't trust him to block. He's going out for a pass. So some of the activity I heard, like him having a big fall camp and making plays in the scrimmage. Now, hopefully he could at least chip block and maybe sneak out into the flats for some plays. I think Buster's pretty creative with that type of stuff. But Hezekiah, I don't think he's going to get a lot of production this year, but it's good to hear the weight loss and him, making plays at that position. So who would you have as a starting tight end right now?
I think Luke Harpring. I did see some 12 personnel. I think whenever it is 12, like Lakota's on the field. But I think the depth chart would be Luke Harpring 1 and Amir Jackson. I was blanking on his name for a second. Amir Jackson 2. And then Lakota Dupree 3. Chekia, I'm not sure if I'm saying his last name right, would be ahead. Like, yeah, I think there is no red shirt, but I think this is a red shirt year, technically, for Hezekiah. And it would have been that way whether he had decided to play left tackle or tight end. I think it was always going to be.
He had to go one way or another, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right. Well, great conversation. We will see you guys again on Sunday evening. We get back to Sunday evenings. to do that. And then we will just a couple weeks away from game day eve. Again, we appreciate Scott Stricklin for joining us today. Corry, Nick, appreciate you guys on this beautiful Monday morning. We will see you guys on the same corner, same time, and soon under construction on Stadium Gale. See you guys later.